I lost out on Cole, never got in the mix for Rendon. Here, finally, they make that move. My concern for the game is more the way you view the threshold. We're seeing it with the Red Sox. We saw it with the Yankees and Dodgers. They wanted to get under to reset the penalty rate. And for a couple of years there, they looked at it like, well, we're not going above that. Teams now, the NL East teams, are all hovering around the lowest threshold and they won't go over it. So that to me is a concern. And I thought at the time the CBA was signed that the thresholds were too low and the union had not worked hard enough to get them higher. Now, there's some disagreement among union people about that, but that was my feeling. It is still my feeling. And it's something that needs to be addressed in the next CBA. And by the way, if you're going to have a threshold mechanism at the top of the salary structure, why not have it at the bottom? So we can stop seeing Pittsburgh-like and Baltimore-like plunges. And to me, there's just a lot of things structurally that have to be addressed in the CBA, service time being another one of them. And yet, this is another conversation for another day because it's really complicated. It's not going too well right now.
That's definitely another conversation for another day. But I want to give a little illustration of what's in it for the Red Sox to make a deal like this. I did this math 2 years ago when the Yankees dipped under, and I think it applies again. I haven't done all the math, but let's just say the Red Sox had kept Mookie, kept David Price, and then, they're trying to win, so they go sign Zach Wheeler. They give him just what the Phillies gave him, 5 years. It was 118, right? Okay, so now they're still in the 50% luxury tax category. So that's going to add $59 million to that 118. So now it's a $177 million deal, not a $118 million deal. Plus, now, if I've done the math right, that would put them over the second and third tax thresholds. So now you're going to add more tax. You're over $180 million for that Zach Wheeler deal. It's a $36 million a year pitcher you're signing. Plus, they're losing their second pick in the draft, their fifth pick in the draft. They're losing a bunch of international slot money. And all right, for the purposes of the luxury tax, the CBT payroll, they're over $250 million. So they're over every threshold. All right, now they go out next winter. They want to sign Mookie. Let's say they give him 10 years, $400 million. So let's think about the cost of that contract. All right, they're in the 50% tax bracket instead of the 20% bracket because they didn't get to reset. So the $400 million deal turns into a $600 million deal, but they're over every threshold. So the next $20 million, it's 62% of that. The next $20 million, it's 95% of that times 10 years, right? So you start thinking about this, that 25 to 90 or $100 million extra in taxes every year. Their $400 million contract is almost doubling. It's over $700 million, maybe $800 million. And they're losing more picks and more slot money. Just do that math and you understand why the Red Sox would do that. But I don't know about you,
Jayson,
Ken, judging by my Twitter feed, Red Sox fans don't care.
Well, not that I would ever want to put more work on your plate, Jayson, but if you wrote that article or wrote what you just described, it would be helpful to the discourse because fans do not get this. And I wrote a column, it was a week ago Sunday, so what, 9-10 days ago now. The headline of the column was why the Red Sox might trade Mookie Betts. Now, I didn't get into the math the way you did, but I explained how if you were an AL East general manager, not in Boston, what would your preference be? Would it be for the Red Sox to keep Mookie Betts for 2020, or would it be for them to go through all of these resetting and bringing in young talent and all the things that they get ancillary out of this trade besides the two players? Any AL East general manager would tell you, and I know this for a fact, hey, better for me if they keep Mookie and don't get all those benefits. And if they lose him for a draft pick, great. If they don't get under the threshold, great. What best serves the Red Sox competitively long term, not for 2020, is doing this kind of trade. Now, we can argue about the particulars, the players they got back, all of it, but the thing was motivated by Mookie wanting to be a free agent. He didn't take their money. Now, granted, did they offer him enough? No, they didn't offer him enough. Didn't go to the level where he would say, absolutely, I'll do this. But maybe they felt that level for whatever reason. His body, kind of a thinner guy being one of them. Maybe they felt it just wasn't their best investment over 10 years. And then when you talk about all the tax implications, yeah, and actually Jason described, trading him gives them a better chance of signing him because they do reset. So, again, it's really hard for any of us to put our arms around trading a homegrown superstar, potential Hall of Famer, a generational talent, just a brilliant player, and a great guy. He's everything. He's everything you want. But the Red Sox sort of put themselves in this position, and then it's a matter of having to get out. Now, they put themselves in this position with a series of short-term moves that, yes, helped them win the 2018 World Series. You can't do that forever. How do I know this? Because the Yankees went under the threshold. The Dodgers went under the threshold. Every other team determines it's good to go under the threshold. The Red Sox are just doing it with a much more prominent and distinguished player.
Yeah. And, then there's the whole MO of the two general managers involved here. You go hire Dave Dombrowski because you're in it to win it now. And so he's going to trade all those prospects. He's going to give out all these contracts. He wins you the World Series. But now out he goes. In comes Chaim Bloom. What's Chaim doing there? He's not there to keep the band together. He's not there to run the payroll up to 275 or 300 million or 800 million. That's not why you brought in Chaim Bloom. Chaim is there to do stuff like this. Like you could see the whole plot playing out. But I don't blame any Red Sox fan for being angry today because players like Mookie don't come along very often. And it's got a chance to haunt them. There's no doubt about it. One more thing, Ken.
Well, who's gonna run the team? That's what I want to know. Who's gonna run that team? Like, I mean, I'm curious. Like, do you get Bruce Bochy? Do you get you got to? That's what could justify this move even more so. You get some momentum off of having the right leadership and having the right kind of season. But I don't know who they're gonna pick.
I don't know, Doug. And there really hasn't even been much smoke on this, right? We haven't heard many names, many unusual names. Renicky, yes. Fabulous, yes. The coach Ureta from Arizona, okay, that's a different name. And the guy who was really impressive at the World Baseball Classic. But we don't know. Now, I don't know if they're waiting for the investigation to be complete and then they can determine whether Renicky is viable, depending on how MLB rules. I don't know any of this, but certainly 2020, to me, the way they're setting it up is not their foremost concern. Now, you want a manager, obviously, for more than 1 year, but maybe they just do what the Astros did and hire Ron Renicky for 1 year and then figure it out at the end of the season. There'd be nothing wrong with that.
I have one more thing for you, Ken. What's the last time that we headed for spring training thinking that the best team in Fort Myers, Florida was not the Red Sox? Okay.
Right? Jason, that's a great question. Well, like 1991?
I don't know. It might be. It might be. But the Twins also were a part of this deal. Let's take a quick look at them. Look, they gave up a guy who throws like 103 miles an hour. And
yes.
Some of the people that I talked to in baseball last night and this morning, they couldn't believe the Twins traded that guy. But in Kenta Maeda, what are they getting and how win now ready are they?
Well, this was a win now move and a move that the Twins normally don't make, right? They are very much a developmental organization. That's the way they've been for years. But Josh Donaldson's a win now move when he's 34 years old and you're signing him for 4 years. And this follows that pattern. Now, the question on Gratterall is he a starter or reliever? And a good number of people seem to think he's a reliever. Well, if that's the case, and Kenta Maeda gives you league average 150 innings over the next few years, I don't know that that's a bad trade. In fact, it's probably a good trade. What will Maeda be for them? That's a question. Probably a starter, I would think. But they have a very unusual group now. It's kind of a collection of number twos and threes, and maybe fours. But they have depth. And they didn't get Wheeler. They didn't get Ryu. Those were their targets. They shifted to Donaldson. Rich Hill's going to be there in June or so. Pineda's going to be back in May. And Homer Bailey's in the mix. Chacin's in the mix, along with Barrios and Odorizzi. They have enough things to choose from here. It's almost a Dodgers-like rotation, frankly.
Yep.
Without a Bueller, I guess. Although Barrios has that capability.
I was just going to say that.
So I sort of like the trade. And I get it. And if Gratterall's a reliever, all we ever hear from the analytics crowd is relievers are fungible. Well, there's fungible then.
Yeah. Among the teams that obviously thought he was going to be a reliever was the Twins. And that's why you make this deal. But, they need to be right. As Aaron Gleeman wrote in The Athletic about this deal, they need to be right about what Gratterall is going to be, because if he turns into a 103 mile per hour flame-throwing rotation piece for the Red Sox, then Kenta Maeda is not going to look that good. But Kenta Maeda,
right, no doubt.
Right, go ahead.
And Kenta Maeda might enter a period of decline here, right? Now, Gratterall also, I was teasing a little bit when I said that the analytics folks often refer to relievers as fungible. Not so much lately because of the way bullpens are used. And even if Gratterall is, Jason, a knockout setup man or a potential closer, anything along these lines, a 3-inning guy who is really good, like an Andrew Miller type, well, then you've got something pretty special for 6 years.
Right. And it was really important for the Red Sox to get somebody like him in this deal, in addition to Alex Verdugo. Alex Verdugo he's a talented player, a lot of years of control, but he was not enough in and of himself to be the centerpiece of a Mookie Betts trade. So I don't know. In many ways, Gratterall will determine how good a trade they actually made. But I know you've made the point that people in baseball don't think they did as bad in this deal as people in Boston seem to think.
Right. And the reason is the global view of it, not simply Verdugo and Gratterall, but the benefits of getting under the threshold and the benefits of clearing payroll. They're clearing about $40-50 million in 2021 payroll. If you take Betts' 27 out of it, he wouldn't be there. And if you take Price's 16, let's call it, out of it as well. So these are things that they're going to be able to use to their advantage. And again, if you're a rival club in that division, this is the course that scares you from the Red Sox perspective. This is the thing you didn't want them to do. You would have much preferred them to keep Mookie, even if they were good in 2020, because this way they're getting back to a position of financial flexibility. They're getting some young talent. We don't know how good. And they're setting themselves up better for the future at a time when their system's depleted and they've got financial questions or considerations with regard to the threshold. So, as you said, Jason, it's very easy to understand why a Red Sox fan is upset with this. But I think if you step back, if you're a Red Sox fan, you have to realize, first of all, you're trading 1 year of Mookie Betts. You're not trading Mookie Betts with 4 years of control. 1 year. And the 1 year, the reason you're trading him is because you're not keeping him, at least not until free agency. So from that perspective, I don't love it. I don't love that they felt compelled to make this move, but I do understand it. And my goodness, if we can't look at trades anymore from two sides, I'm going to get on my soapbox here, then we are looking at the wrong sport. Because how many times, I'm going to give you one great example. The Will Myers, James Shields trade way back when. Oh my God, you can't trade Will Myers, James Shields. Yeah, well, they won the World Series. Now, this is not going to have the same kind of short-term benefit, but it can have a long-term benefit. And listen, I'm no fan of owners pocketing money if that's what the Red Sox are doing. And certainly John Henry can afford to do whatever he wants to do. We all know that. But these guys are running a business. They're running it their way. And they're not running it any differently than the Yankees and Dodgers are running it in their desire to get under the threshold.
Well, this just in,